Well, hello friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. Welcome down to the Nook. And today we're going to talk Ben Nevis. Not a distillery I've talked a lot about with you. In fact, I think I've only ever had samples with you on the channel. So here I've got a couple of bottles, thanks to James. They're both independent releases. This is Carn Mor. It's a 7-year-old Ben Nevis, released 47.5%, all in sherry butts. And then I've got another independent bottle release. This is Signatory Vintage Ben Nevis 2019, only a 4-year-old, heavily peated, and it's a bruiser. It says on our proof, but that's the old imperial proof, so that's going to be 57.1%. So if you have any Ben Nevis, good for you. They're hard to find. Pour a little bit with me and see if any of the notes that I have resonate with your experience of Ben Nevis. 3, 4. Well, thanks for coming back. As I said, pour something. I should have said, if you don't have any Ben Nevis, pour a Highland Scotch with some character, some funk, maybe a little bit of peat. Both of these have a little bit of peat. This one's heavily peated, and both of them have a little bit of character. So, what's interesting I find about both of them, as well as being independent releases, perhaps, they've got a lot of good information. So this Carn Mor, it says right in the bottle, look, I'm in here for 7 years. I was distilled in 2015, so then I was bottled 7 years later. And I spent my life in sherry butts, natural color, non-chill filter. And I appreciate that about both of these releases. And it's actually one of the reasons why the longer I stay exploring Scotch and whiskey, the more I pay attention to independent bottling. I know at first, it felt hit or miss, and I would say they still feel hit or miss, but they're almost always integrity releases, and I really like that. So Carn Mor's take, 7-year-old Ben Nevis Highland, should say they're owned by the I believe the Nika group, and probably some of the, because I've got some older bottlings of from the barrel, would feature a fair amount of Ben Nevis. I would think. I don't really know. But I know that they can't anymore. So all the new Japanese whiskey, if it's Japanese whiskey, is all made there. Whereas before, they could do some blending in of Scotch. Anyways, I digress. Let's talk this one. A 7-year-old sherry butt, natural non-chill filter Ben Nevis. Sweet and funky. It is sweet, jammy, strawberries, light sweet vanilla, cane sugar almost. Like, it's pretty sweet. It's nice and sweet. But then I will say there's another layer. I've heard people talk about it. I haven't heard anyone talk about this particular release, but I've heard people say, like a few distilleries out there, like a Springbank or I would say like a Craigellachie, there's something funky going on in here. For me, it's just, I think, a little light bit of peat, a little bit of vegetable peat in with some nice sweet cherry, and then something just fun. I feel it's a little bit more like Craigellachie. Like in Craigellachie, I get maybe because I know they dry it over a diesel fire, I get a little bit of diesel, and I'm getting a little bit of that in here. But also nice sherry, nice sweet. All right, let's stop talking and get into some Scotch. Hope you got something good in your glass. Sláinte. That's really good for my palate, and I'll try to unpack why. Ever since James said, you got to give us a try, and so I had a couple of little grams, and I like this one. I like it because to me it is a really nice interplay of sweet cherries and berries, and also peat. In the palate, to me, there's more peat. In fact, more than, right now live with you guys, more than I was remembering. I haven't had it in a little while now. And it is a dirty whiskey. Boy, I wish Big Al was here. I could share this with, because this is what I would say. It's meaty, it's oily. I've heard some people talk about Ben Nevis like an engine oil kind of thing. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can get that. A little bit of fuel, a little bit of oil. but all in a good way. I also get some other nice flavors that you can probably connect better to. Like I've got a bit of chocolates in here. I've got a little bit of, you know, nuttiness, like a walnut in here. This is a good Scotch, but it has a lot of bold, strong flavors. This is not a relaxed, it's not a calm, it's not a careful Scotch. This big, bold, and meaty Scotch. Better try another sip, see what other flavors I can get. So the second sip maybe played more into some roast notes, into some oak notes, into some wood notes. And the sweetness remains kind of a lingering berry. It moves slightly more tart, so it comes off strawberry and moves a little bit into a raspberry. So it stays in that kind of red fruit note. But for me, the focus is whatever you would describe as kind of that funky peat. Now, it's not an Isla peat. It's not like all over my mouth peat. I really don't. I'm talking about it because it stands out as an interesting flavor for a Highland. It's just got a lot of stuff to chew on. And other than that, you know, it still has some nice fruit notes, some nice light toffee notes, a little bit of sweet vanilla. So it has those things going on. But I'm trying to punch out the highlights, and it is a punchy dram. I like this. I like this, James. Thanks for sharing it with me. So I know I poured this a little heavy. Being an Imperial 100 proof dram, which I think is around 57%, 57.1, you know, this has a lot of kick. It's also young. Nice on here that it says, look, I was laid out and distilled in 2019 and bottled only 4 years later. It's also in a refill Oloroso cask, natural color, non-chill filter. So either the cask is less, or my lighting isn't really good for coloring yet. I got to figure that out. I don't think you can really see color well with the current light setup I have here, but it's quite a bit lighter. It's still got character. It's not straw gold, not super light. I've certainly had scotches that are very light. So 4 years, ex Oloroso, and I think it's second fill or something. It's not first fill. So that's interesting. But it mentions on it heavily peated. So let's see what 57% heavily peated Highland Scotch from Ben Nevis is like. Sláinte. Oh, wait. I should nose it first. And it is more full peat. But interestingly, right now, it's back into sweet. And it's sweet and a bit of citrus, a bit of lemon, a bit of lighter sweet fruits. Definitely not the red. Oh, coming back, boy, this nose has opened up. This nose now is solidly in that roasted chocolate, nuts, and some older fruits dried up. This is lemon curd, bright. Bit of iodine, bit of seaweed, bit of brine. More brine, more sour, more, wasn't this bottle, but someone said they get a really sour note in the nose, and I'm getting it here. I did not get it here. They implied that it's a characteristic of Ben Nevis. I did not get that here, but it is here. A really soured, salty note. All right, let's try this one on the palate, like I tried to do earlier. Sláinte. So this is an absolute beast, and it is so different than this one. This is like so punchy. Of course it's young, but I've had younger. It's 4 years old. It's 1 year older than it bare minimum, but it is punchy. It's tons of tart vanilla, lemon curd is what I'm thinking of. Just absolutely. It's also briny. I'm also getting iodine. I'm also getting like just lots of vegetable notes, like vegetation notes, not vegetable, like nice cut up stewed. No. I mean like that kind of green, mouth drying vegetation type note. Not quite pine or pine seed oil, but Like we're pushing in that direction. I better try another sip. Gotcha. This time the second sip created a more welcome dram. Here, like right from the first sip, I was getting what I needed to. The nose improved with a bit of time coming back to it. But here, I would say the second sip added a bit more legs, added a bit more body, gave me a bit more oil. It gave me a bit more of that dirtiness, a bit of that fuel going on here, that oil note. And and took it away from the, it was starting to run into like a pine oil or a varnish, that kind of thing. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be too sharp. Thankfully, the second sip really brought in some depth and brought in some body, some things to chew on. Now it's still punchy, hot. It's a bruiser. This one's going to kick you around. And if you like that, this is a lot of fun. This is, as it should be, right? Less percentage, a little bit older age. It is definitely, to me, more refined and it is more sherried. And so it's got a bit like less peat, more sherry, bit more age to take off some of the edges. Ends up being a better dram for me. Not that there's anything wrong with a lovely bruiser on the shelf. Just to have a lot of fun. Oh, and spice and black pepper on the long finish. Both of these actually have really nice finishes. This is a bit more refined, of course, but this one, well, actually, it does have a long finish, but it kind of ends up being coal, charcoal, and black pepper. So, anyways, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Have you had Ben Nevis? What is your favorite Ben Nevis? Is there another Highland dram with some peat or some funk that you like? Or does it remind you of something else, something on the island or something else? It's always fun to talk a bit about your experience with Ben Nevis and how it compares. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.